Good morning and welcome to the Economic Times Digital Experience webinar presented by Connect Digital. I'm your host, Isha Bhala, welcoming you on this virtual interactive platform. The pandemic made us reimagine BFSI sector with digital transformation. The BFSI industry is altering business models and adopting latest technologies such as intelligent automation, low-code platforms, cloud computing, and AI and ML. The technology change is more suitable to today's digital savvy customer who demands a seamless and integrated omni-channel experience. And that is what we will be focusing today with our theme, The Road Ahead for BFSI. At the Economic Times Digital Transformation webinar, we bring to you a platform where global business leaders and renowned experts will share their views on how digital transformation is changing the BFSI sector. Our sessions and speakers will explore various strategies based on digital revolution and the need to strike the right balance between technology, customer experience, and security. So let's look forward to a very interactive day ahead. Before we begin, let me take a moment and thank our partners for their support. I'd like to thank our presenting partner, Connect Digital. Let me also thank those who have put together this webinar. The webinar has been brought to you by ET Edge. As we get set for the beginning, I'd like to invite our very special speaker on challenges businesses are facing in digital transformation journey. We'll be focusing on cost, on security, on the processes, lack of talent, and so much more. So let us extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Saurabh Tripathi, Managing Director and Senior Partner, BCG.
Very good morning. It's a great pleasure to present today in this seminar on a very important topic. Pandemic is behind us, hopefully, and in India, definitely we feel that a new phase is now in front of us to rebuild, to regain the time that is lost, and to really learn from some of the things that we could see during the pandemic, and how to deploy those learnings to make even better business models and a brighter future. So in this context, I think it's very timely to discuss learnings regarding digital transformation. I'm going to talk about the learnings of BCG on digital transformation in banking. And I would highlight that just a few weeks back, BCG concluded a massive study, the whole world, covering over 1,000 companies to understand their perspective on digital transformation and what has succeeded, what has not succeeded, what works, what doesn't. And obviously we covered over 100 retail banks as well across the whole world, Europe, Americas, and Asia, roughly equally divided. So what I'm going to do today is to share some of the findings of this study, and it has very direct relevance to all the financial institutions, banks, non-banks who are engaged in rapidly transforming themselves. What we call today the institutions who are transforming themselves from digital legacy or legacy institutions or legacy incumbents to digital incumbents. And that journey is very important, is very interesting. And obviously, the financial institutions are not just having to become digital incumbents, they have to become digital natives and then hyperscalers. So that's the journey that we have seen. And some of the learnings that I'm going to talk about today is very relevant for this journey. So let's get started. On this chart, we're just showing at a very high level what was the message that we got as we talked to the banks. We are asking them, what do you see as a primary driver for digital transformation? And just till last year, almost majority of the respondents would say it is COVID that is driving them to rapidly transform. Even now, a large number of non-banks industry people still say that COVID pandemic is accelerating, but not for banks. And I think that's a big message. On this page here, you can see 35% of respondents basically ranked the shifting industry dynamics, shifting consumer tastes, is basically that fundamentally the rules of the game as far as banking is concerned are completely changed. And it is not an external pressure due to pandemic anymore. There is a realization that the banking industry is set in next 5 years to pretty radically transform because of the tectonic shifts in the dynamics of the industry and consumer tastes and behaviors. And as the youngsters are coming up, the banking has a whole new meaning. And that is dominant, as you can see, very large share of respondents talking about that, much larger than, almost 10% larger than our sample of the entire, set of respondents. So that is a very big thing. And also you can see the number two is also higher than the average of the whole industry, which is pressure to innovate. New entrants are coming up, and it is real. Let's look at this chart here. Now, this chart is global, and I will talk about it and also provide perspective from an India angle. Now, as you can see on the very left-hand side, from the early 2000 to 2020, over these 20 years, as far as market capitalization is concerned, 30% today globally, market capitalization in financial institutions, we have to keep insurance aside, is driven by non-banks, fintechs, payment service providers. So the banks are contributing less and less of the market capitalization. And this is a global picture. In India, it is 40% already. So the disruption is a little bit more intense in this market. For the audience who are here today, I think this is even more stark, even more important. Fintech is no longer a niche that you talk about, some startups doing something. Fintechs are actually real, and they may be looked upon as a future of financial services, and banks have to really take very, very strong cognizance of it. Number two is, the valuations are starting to reflect, most banks are rated at 1 to 2 times net revenues. Fintechs are rated at 13 to 25 times net revenue. This is global picture. In India, it will be even starker. And of course, the markets are basically just discounting the future, both in terms of growth rate also, and also where the customers of the future are going to likely to go. And then this is also reflected in the amount of private equity investment that is taking place. In 2021, calendar year 2021, globally, the amount of money that went into fintech space, 131 billion. New money that was invested was more than the sum of entire money that was invested in the last 3 years, 18, 19, 20 put together. And India has emerged as the third biggest destination to get this flow. And with the recognition that Indian banking sector is one of the most disrupted, and probably it will be the poster child of how banking sectors of the world will look like, given the way we are progressing, especially in light of our public digital stack, the India stack, the fact that we have had such phenomenal success with UPI, the fact that already, fintechs and big techs like Google and PhonePe and many others are already, a very dominant channel through which most of the people in the country are doing banking or the basic banking in form of payments. So that actually just puts us the stage for an even more sort of critical importance to how the journey has to be started, because the attackers are here to eat the lunch of banks, and that's quite clear. All right, so globally, when we did this survey, we asked people how successful you are with the current digital transformation initiative, and that's the topic of today's discussion. Digital transformation, what is the learning? And this chart basically shows how the respondents worked out. So we basically asked, the metrics that you have set forward for digital transformation, how successful are you in them? And people who said that they were able to meet the target value or exceeded them, they could create a sustainable change with their digital transformation. We call them the win companies, which are here in the green color. And then value was created, but not all the targets met. Only about 50% of the targets were really met. And sustainability is not yet fully established. That is the yellow zone, which we call the worry zone. And then there are a number of companies who are in the woe zone, which is where the value did not get created, less than 50% of the targets met, and so on and so forth. And you can see 13, 52, 35. That's the number for the whole sample of over 1,000 companies across all industry sectors. Banks are not very different. So as you can see here, compared to 35% of the companies who self-report that they feel that they are in the win zone. 38% of the banks report so, but a vast majority struggle with it. And I think that's not something new. I think it is appreciated by most industry folks that it is tough. Getting digital transformation to deliver is not easy, and many institutions they start and they falter on the side. And what exactly makes a successful transformation and what doesn't, I think is that's a very important topic of our discussion. And for retail banks, it is a matter of life and death. It's not a matter of something that is of the top 5 priorities. It is the top priority because of dynamics of the industry. So our research showed that there are these 6 dimensions, and in these 6 dimensions, one has to really see whether you are really at the best possible state to ensure success. And in today's presentation, I'll talk about these 6 dimensions and what are the dynamics of each of these 6. Let me take a minute to really explain these 6 factors and what's the dynamics of these. So firstly, of course, integrated strategy with clear transformation goals. I think it is a very interesting point. Obviously, you can say this for anything. You need to have a strategy goal so that then only you will be successful. But in digital transformation, I think it's the reason it is here is because many times, given the so much of talk about it, I think everybody feels the pressure to do something. So they get started because they want to talk about, yes, we are also doing something in digital, or we also have this cool and shiny app. And by the way, we are also integrating and with somebody else or whatever, or and so on and so forth. There are so many cool, shiny objects when it comes to digital that it is very easy to get distracted by the cool, shiny objects. And what we found the winners to be doing is to put it down very clearly, why we are doing it, what we're doing it, how it will be done, as a very good, solid strategy discussion should be, what exactly are the goals, what numbers will change, which metric will change, and then work backward through it very rigorously. The good old strategy discussion is still relevant, even though many people feel that, okay, we know what we have to do, just get that done. And then it ends up in a state where you've got multiple initiatives and they're not sort of talking to each other, or you do something very nice and it looks very cool, but doesn't scale. It just stays very small and localized, but your mothership is not changing. One of the most interesting things, or not so interesting from the perspective of the players, is that many institutions find that you have very localized excellence in digital, but it doesn't scale. That the mothership is not transforming. That you find it easy to do digital somewhere in the site, but the main institution is just not moving because the legacy is just so entrenched. Right? So that is a very important thing, and that's where it should all start. So number 1. Number 2 is leadership commitment from CEO through middle management. Again, you would say, well, everything requires this to be truly successful. Everything requires leadership commitment. How we have realized that many times what happens is the CEO is very committed. Yeah, you make a big statement about it. You commit yourself publicly, and then you hire somebody who's chief of digital officer, and that chief digital officer has to do something, and then everybody else remains the same. And then the hope is that the chief digital officer will somehow do the magic and the organization will change. That doesn't work. We found that the institutions who are able to really transform, there the leaders have to come together. The current line leaders who run legacy, and not just the leaders, but leaders in the middle management. And they need to sit together and look at it and say, everybody who's currently running a business, in a year from now, digital transformation will lead to what change and why it is relevant for me, why it is important to me. If we are not able to translate digital strategy into implications for everybody in middle management, it is difficult, because what happens is that on the side, certain digital transformation initiatives are taking place. They deliver some results. Then you have to scale. When you have to scale, you have to go to the line organization, the current line organization, say, let's implement this. And every time you implement something on a new digital platform, initial periods, it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, there is a huge resistance from the current line organization to just not adopt the new thing and continue with what we have, because we've got pressures for quarterly profits and this, that, and the other. And there is so much of resistance that the things fail. And in my personal experience, the only way digital transformation succeeds if actually the ownership of digital is with the current line management. and it is not delegated to somebody on the side to say, you are responsible for it. If it fails, it's your problem. If it succeeds, I will benefit. This doesn't work. So a very basic idea, but it has profound implications when it comes to digital transformation. Number three, high caliber talent. Once again, of course, nothing can happen without high caliber talent, isn't it? But in the context of digital transformation, it's a very unique thing, because the kind of talent that is needed for digital transformation is very different. And sometimes it is so different that people can't even relate to it. Let me give an example. For a long time, I have worked with financial institutions for a very long time. And you go to any financial institutions, you will always find the business and IT are fighting. Like, it's not true for any, but for most. Like, the business has so many complaints about IT, IT has so many complaints about business, and the two sides were enough to fight. But actually, if you really want to do digital transformation, you need to have a third type of people who are designers. Now, many institutions don't appreciate that. You need to have a high quality design team in-house to do this. That talent is a very different talent, and that talent is very different from technology talent as well. Definitely very different from the traditional technology talent that most financial institutions have. And if that was not enough, you need to have data scientists. Data scientists are a very different talent in themselves. And within technology also, the world has many different roles and many different job families, and they are actually quite different. The people who are working on the front end technology and people who are working on managing the back end, have very different priorities. They work on very different rhythm. And so the segmentation is quite important. It's very important for leaders to appreciate this dynamics of talent and what it takes to keep the talent together, what it takes to make them to come to you. It is not possible to outsource everything when you're trying to do digital transformation. Of course, you cannot hire everybody as well. You have to outsource. You have to have technology service providers. You have to have people who are building the code, doing the design for you. But if you do not have sufficient capabilities in-house, it is very difficult to keep the outsourced parties, partners, to really be fully aligned with what you want to do and get the best out of it. Right? It goes out of sync very quickly. So talent. This is, as I will show in my subsequent slide, this is one of the most severe problems for most institutions, because digital transformation without digital talent, very tough. Number four, even if you have got the talent, the way of working is to be very different. And most institutions start with, even the ones who have a very good project management track record, that they have taken projects and delivered on time, or they have delivered on them. Even those institutions have a tough time, in digital transformation. And the reason is as follows. The world is changing quite rapidly. Within 12 months, things are very different from where you start. So if you start on a mega project, which has a 3-year program and milestone first drop, when after 12 months, you start the project, you start making something, and you release with a lot of fanfare 12 months, maybe not 12, you decided to do 12, it will be 14 or 15 by the time you launch it. And at that time, you see, but not new players have come and they are having a lot of new things. And when we started, what we were making was looking cool, but now it's not looking cool. And it's already out of sync with market realities, and new people have done different things because you're competing with a lot of entrepreneurial energy of startups, and you can't predict. And that is a big disappointment for a lot of institutions, that you are always catching up. And that's because the way of working has to be changed. And people have to get used to, or to embrace the idea that you will work in what is called agile squads, which is a team of engineers, team of business people, data scientists, designers, coders, but also technology architects, but most importantly, business owners, who are called the product owners in this world. They work together, and they work together as a team. Now, again, we have seen cross-functional teams existing for the last 50 years. So what's new? What's new here is that this team has to have a bigger and more important hardline allegiance to itself as a small team which is trying to deliver something, the goals, and they live or die with that, rather than coming together for something, but staying very strongly associating yourself with from the department that you come from, because the silos are the biggest problem. In the traditional world of finance, files moving from one department to the other was a norm. And over here, if things move from one team to the other, it is a complete disaster. It does not work. So if there is a small team, that team is set for a goal, and they have to learn fast, fail fast, work together, anticipate problems. The team should also have compliance people part-time. It should also have legal people part-time, so that once things are done, nobody comes and says, but it's not possible. We can't do this. This is a problem. That's a problem. Everybody has to come together in the beginning, set together, and agree on a goal, and then work together on it. And then if the things don't work, it's everybody's problem. Like if you can't have a compliance team saying, I told you so. You can't have legal team saying, I told you so. You can't have other technology people saying, I told you so. So this change is not a small change. This is a very big change. And many people try to do lipstick on a pig by saying, okay, we will just bring cross-functional team. What's the big thing? You'll get 4 people to come together. But in order to make it work, you need to change their performance management. You need to change the way they perceive their growth in the organization, both short-term, long-term. And unless that is fundamentally changed, this doesn't work. And silos exist because we have all grown up in a silo in most of the traditional organizations. So if we want to do this, fail fast and learn behavior, it needs a very different way of organizing himself. And finally, effective monitoring of progress. And it's again, everybody does that. In terms of digital transformation, it's important to say, what are the metrics? Just launching an app is not enough. It needs to change real metrics. If you have created a new process by which loans are going to be given, and the old paper-based processes are going to stay in the side, how many loans are actually going through the new process and how many are going through the old process? And if that metric is not tracked, you create a phenomenal journey. And that we know the standard term in the industry is called the happy path, which is one of those situations where the customer doesn't have to do anything, meaning everything goes straight through, cut, and you get the loan. What percentage of loans are actually going through a happy path, even though you have the happy path? And many times we find, okay, only 5%. 95% are going through the old method, or there are too many exceptions or too many escalations, and then it doesn't work because fundamentally the organization is not changed, and you by far don't look like a digital native. You look like, okay, small part of it is digital, but by and large the same thing. And that is why metrics and measurement are very important, so that they keep you honest. And my experience is that designing and implementing is about 30% of the work. 70% of the work is actually then once you implement a new journey, implement a new tool, implement a new app, making that app to be adopted by your own employees requires a lot of very careful problem solving. Why are they not adopting? Solve this problem, solve that problem, and then you land up with solving about 50 or different problems to unlock the small reasons why things were not being adopted. And if measurement is not very sharp, this is going to slip through. And last and not least is technology itself. Most institutions have monolithic IT architecture, which is not easily scalable. When we talk about digital, we want to have hyper scalable business model where you can scale very quickly. Cloud is very important. It is very important to have microservices enable architecture so you can connect with partners very seamlessly. That's a very core mantra in the digital transformation. Nobody can just sit in isolation themselves. They need to be connected. Financial institutions in particular, in the future, have to sell most of their stuff on other people's platforms. Right? When people are purchasing a car, they are on some platform. At that time, they need to be able to buy a loan, and it should be seamlessly integrated. When people are making a payment, buying something on somewhere, they need to make payments have to be integrated, and so on and so forth. So embedded finance is a very big part of the future, and it's important to recognize that technology architecture, if it is not keeping pace with it, they will not be able to stay in tune with the requirements of their partners. So if you go to an e-commerce player and say, we want to tie up with you, the requirements that they put on you in terms of the turnaround time, the speed of response, your API should respond in so much time. Those things are not possible unless the IT architecture has been upgraded sufficiently. So these are the 6 dimensions. And I would like to just provide a little bit more context on these 6 dimensions. So obviously, we've studied more than 1,000 organizations. We found some of them say, okay, we are doing very well on these 2 and not 3. And some of them will say, we are doing very well on these 4, but not 2. And we found that, not surprisingly, but a very, very clear linkage between the number of dimensions that organizations feel sufficiently confident that we have done what it takes and the results that they achieve. As you can see, as you have 1 to 6 dimensions under control properly in spirit, you can see that the impact is accelerating. It starts slow, of course. Then by the time you reach 4 dimensions are doing well and they're firing, and you're already starting to see very good success rate, and then it just exponentially goes up. And it's important to highlight that in the world of digital, there are hyperscalers, right? Hyperscalers like Amazon, Google. Businesses scale very rapidly. They are so well-defined digital organizations, and they will be mastering all six. And it's important to see where one sort of performs on each of the six dimensions, because that's the holy grail of digital transformation. That if you are digitally transformed, you should be able to hyperscale very quickly. It's not just about cost reduction. And so we've been able to plot banks across the world. Indian banks will not be any different. So we got people to rate themselves. Where do you, on a scale of 1 to 10, on each of these six dimensions that I talked about? And on this chart, you will see the range, the highest and the lowest, and also the top and the bottom quartile, which are the yellow dots. And the bank symbol is there everywhere to show where the banks are. As you can see, banks by and large, on an average, are in the middle, because banks are large, a part of the sample themselves. But there's one area where banks are, on an average, banks are very close to the top quartile, which is leadership commitment. Was very true. Most of the leaders in financial institutions are starting to appreciate that there's no running away from it. We really need to do this. So leadership commitment is there, and of course that also means that leaders are starting to appreciate that there's no way away from it. There's no option. We have to do it, and so more and more energy will go into this space. But on other dimensions, we don't yet see banks really moving anywhere close to the top quartile. And that's the reason why, in terms of success rate also, we don't really find financial institutions to be more successful than other industries in achieving success in digital transformation, even though for financial institutions, it is such a do and die situation. So clearly, it's a call for action. And hopefully today's conversations will have good quality deliberations on how to move the needle on other dimensions, assuming that number 2, which is the commitment of the leadership, is really there. And now a few more some small things just to bring to light of what financial institutions are doing. The single most important thing that all financial institutions try to do is to get their customer experience and journey right. And I think that takes about 70% of the effort of most financial institutions. It is a very difficult job. Journeys have a lot of complexity, and in order to create, and you have to actually transform the legacy journey. You can't always reimagine everything. And so, as you can see, it just stands out as one of the most important things that use case that banks are working on. And the second one, quite understandably, is how to connect to other digital ecosystems, how to create partnerships, because financial institutions are realizing that very few people, consumers, really want to deal with financial institutions. They feel that is just incidental. They want to do things, they want to buy things, they want to shop around, they want to buy a car, they want to buy a house, and then they want financial institutions to be silently available there at the right time, seamlessly integrated into that journey for them to provide the service. And so this whole thing around business model innovation, ecosystems is very much the top priority on most institutions. And as you can see, it comes the top 3. We also found something very interesting that is worthy of attention of the audience here. Here you will see on each of those dimensions, we basically said, where are the banks which are really succeeding, and where are the banks which are not succeeding? So the green ones are the banks which are succeeding, and the yellow ones are the banks which are not succeeding or not so successful. And just to see the difference. So as you can see, customer experience journey, like everybody is emphasizing that as a top priority. The successful banks are really on the extreme, but not so successful are also there in terms of the priority. Business model innovation they are doing, but we found that a very big difference between the winning banks and not so winning banks is the gap in the sales and market acceleration. Because very important to realize that digital fundamentally obviously can reduce cost also, but the most important dimension of digital transformation is hyperscaling. Like your sales and marketing, if you invest in digital, you can scale the organization rapidly and you can unlock that. And that is a very big difference between the winners and the losers in the banking sector. While most other places you'll find they're by and large similar, there's obviously a gap. But this is one of those places where we find much more investment by the winners than the people who are behind. And then I'll just present this one last page before I end the presentation, is another dimension where we found a big gap. So in this chart, you're seeing, enablers. Where are you focusing on? different dimensions. As you can see, new ways of working, digital skill building, setting up digital hubs, upgrading technology. And you find by and large the winning banks, which are green, and not so winning banks, which are red. Obviously, there is a gap, but a small gap. But the place where you find a big gap is the adoption of scaled implementation of AI solutions. AI is very important because, to my previous page, AI is used, artificial intelligence analytics is used to create personalization, to create digital marketing, to unlock growth. And it is also used in managing risk better and better, how you can manage risk in completely automatic customer journeys. Right? And these two areas are so fundamental to digital transformation in banks that if institutions, as you can see, the only place where the red bar is higher than green is upgrading technology. One of the mistakes that many institutions make is they just start technology for the sake of technology. Or the technology team says, give us time, let's get the technology sorted first, then you can do the business transformation. That doesn't work. And that leads to a lot of situations where things don't work out because technology is never ready because it's a moving target. So it's important that technology transformation is embedded inside a business initiative, and artificial intelligence is kept front and center of this transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Saurabh Tripathi. It was a pleasure listening in, and I'm sure that all our audience members had a lot to learn. You spoke about BCG's learnings on digital transformation, especially when it comes to the banking sector, what really works, what doesn't, how effective really are strategic transformational initiatives. You also did share the 6 success factors to drive a digital transformation to desired results. We've been having a lot of comments and opinions from our audience, and that makes us believe even more that they enjoyed this opening address very, very much. Thank you once again for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you. And that said, we're all set to take the next step, and we are about to begin with our presentation on total experience transformation, revolutionizing businesses with low-code application platforms, because BFSI sector today has adapted customer experience transformation paradigms to effectively create best-in-class customer journey management. And this session will especially focus on changing the customer experiences when it comes to banking experience, BFSI use cases for CX transformation. It is such a pleasure as I request the kind presence of our speakers. A very warm welcome to Mr. Sajeev Nair, Chief Technology Officer, IT Services, Connect Business Solutions. Also joining him will be Mr. Krishna Kumar Gangatharan, Solution Architect Lead, OutSystems. Let's welcome both of them.
Very good morning to all of you. Okay, thanks for joining this particular session in which Connect Business Solutions Digital Transformation Arm, Connect Digital. We are trying to showcase our point of view in terms of applicability of low-code application platform for total experience transformation for BFSA segment in particular. Yeah. So basically here we will cover BFSI market challenges, pre and post pandemic, okay, the perennial issues BFSI is trying to address. Then low-code value proposition, by virtue of which we will be able to address most of these problems in a very dynamic way. Then of course, one of the premier low-code application platform OutSystems, my colleague, solutions head from OutSystems, Mr. Krishna, will cover the final nuances and point of views from the OutSystems implementations perspective, and of course BFSI use cases, okay, which are more predominantly being addressed by most of the institutions using OutSystem based low-code application platforms also will be covered. Yeah. So here, market challenges, especially faced in the BFSI industry. Of course, post-pandemic, some of the scenarios are quite prevalent, but pre-pandemic also. Okay, the most perennial issues all the CXOs are trying to address in BFSI segment only is the shrinking revenue and growing in non-performing asset ratios. As per the Financial Stability Report, RBI, released in last July for FY22, the gross NPA ratio will tend to increase from 9.8 to around 11.22%. And post-pandemic scenario, the kind of financial imbalance, stability criteria, etc., have contributed to that. But all this pointing towards putting more governance, risk, compliance aspects, plus more prudence in terms of allocating assets, okay, loans, equity, so on and so forth for the possible clientele. Then the rising customer expectations. Of course, every customer, okay, tends to think that all the banking products, non-banking financial services product, insurance product, etc., is tailor-made for them. So some sort of differentiation they expect from all these products. How to satisfy them? This is an era of hyper-personalization. Okay, the one-to-one mapping and giving the feeling to customer that it's tailor-made for them, irrespective of the nature of the product. That's quite important. Okay, this is the scenario which all the organizations, BFSI segment, has to address so as to have utmost customer satisfaction. Then shrinking product needs, as already mentioned, being an era of hyper-personalization, every service, every banking, non-banking insurance product, etc., need to create some sort of a differentiation to address the varied heterogeneous needs of all the customers. So this have been an issue before as well as post-pandemic scenario. The changing customer behavior. In fact, one study says more than 74% of expected outcomes are being seen at the omni-channel level, okay, especially through mobile by customers. Then tightening regulations and control, etc. See, one figure of approximately around $375 billion have been spent, okay, by way of fines since the 2008 Lehman Gate. Okay, so that showcases the ever focusing aspect of tightening regulations, controls, so on and so forth. Okay, declining business health. More than 45% of the corporate as well as fintech solutions, okay, worldwide shows declining okay, profits. The trend have been on an uphill post the pandemic scenario. The changing dynamics of the workforce. Here, the scenario is that the current workforce, the millennials, okay, they, frankly speaking, don't have the time or energy to just have focused kind of development efforts in the basic greenfield platforms, whether it is Java, .NET, all those kind of things. Okay, they envisage okay some sort of a jovial learning as far as creating these computer assets. There comes the significance of this kind of low-code platforms we see. Thriving fintech, as we are aware, 30% of expected revenue loss of traditional trading over phone to new digital platforms. One of the items. See, non-banking financial services are catching up with all the innovative products, so on and so forth. It all showcases the thriving fintech and the traditional banking core aspects. Okay, has to be in line with the expectations the new age the customers are having. And tactical automation initiatives at CXO level. See, automation initiatives, they get into without having an end goal in mind with the definite time constraints, etc. So here come the need for having a very dedicated or focused digital strategy to address all these things. As mentioned, all those issues, okay, to an extent, okay, in a practically possible way, we can address by having a coherent business strategy. Here, platform architecture for agility. See, all the existing investments on IT resources has to be protected. So the kind of enterprise architecture we will do, by virtue of which most of the challenges we have just mentioned can be addressed by way of creating dynamic application scenarios, need to have a very flexible platform architecture agility. Okay, process automation end to end has to be arrived at or has to be done within no time. Okay, the minimum turnaround time, I will say. Then every point in time during that application automation life cycle, data is the essence, data is the key. So that by way of virtualization, some sort of insights we are okay wanting to get into the data being generated by virtue of umpteen millions of transactions. Okay, that data should be there at fingertip, okay, in order to make predictive analytics as well as intelligent decision making at any point in time. So that aspect we have to consider. Customer experience transformation, I just touched upon. See, the total experience transformation, okay, gardeners of the world have come up in at least the last 1+ years. See, not only the customer experience, equally important is the employee experience to be up to the mark, so that employees are empowered, they will be able to provide the ultimate customer experience. Okay, that clubbed with the multi experience, which is the basic tenet nowadays. Everyone expects omni-channel customer experience with all the best practices of UX UI transformation. That is the total experience transformation we are talking about. There should be some platform which will be able to achieve this in a dynamic mode for all the customers. That's a scenario. Legacy modernization comes into picture, where protection of all the existing investments, that's the golden kind of a tenet every CXO will be working on. The investments of the past need to be protected as far as possible. So what can be a platform? What can be a magic wand which will help us to achieve all those things? Okay, by virtue of adopting not multiple platforms, a set of platforms, tool platforms, best practices, design constraints, so on and so forth. There comes the significance of low-code application platforms. Yeah. So here, all these end-to-end business processes we are talking about, many times we call it as dynamic case management. Okay, business processes, irrespective of domains across BFSI, spanning across multiple business days, are having some limited start and end timing, so on and so forth. Domain agnostic processes. How we will be able to connect existing systems of record, the tens of millions of trillions of data related to all the services we are providing, as well as the transaction data being maintained, generated, okay, being put in various sources of data platform. How those systems of record can be real-time accessed or in a batch mode accessed, so as to get them connected with the real-time customer interactions. That is the essence of all these applications we talk about. It's called dynamic case management. So the engagement zone, where in an omni-channel based, all the transactions end-to-end business processes, okay, by connecting them real time with the enterprise data, how an end-to-end business process service can be accomplished for the customers. This kind of scenario, all the low-code application platforms comes into picture, where in an entire decoupled distributed architecture mode, they'll be able to connect in an omni-channel way all the enterprise applications as question to ensure customer experience by virtue of maybe workflow aspects, seamless integration with all the systems of record, modern app development scenarios. Gone are the days by which the client side, server side kind of interactions were there on submit of some sort of an input at the client side. The data will go back to the server to get the next step done. From server, the response will be expected, etc. This is an era of reactive web response. Okay. New age tools or platforms called full stack application technologies. These are all has to be considered, where low-code application platform have a solution to leverage all these aspects together. AAML, I just mentioned about predictive analytics scenario. Once data generated at any point in time in the process steps, real-time event correlation as well as subsequent action. How we will be able to do so that to make instant decisions, move on, making customers 100% happy. All these kind of scenarios comes into picture. So in a distributed kind of an architecture of low-code platforms, the omni-channel engagement so on, or the application in question, okay, by virtue of which customer will be serviced, can be arrived at by a set of application scenarios or application modules, which will club in automation zone, okay, to connect the systems of record. So low-code application platforms provide that particular facility. And also one important aspect which comes into picture, which many other platforms or technical old age solutions will not provide, that is the application analytics part of it. At any point in time in customer journey and effective customer journey management, where actually the bottlenecks happen, if at all, the end-to-end business process is not getting completed as per the customer satisfaction. So these kind of application analytics also comes into picture by virtue of using low-code application platforms like OutSystems. See, our experience with low-code application implementation, okay, roughly the value proposition I can suggest to the CXO suite and all the aspiring customers here is roughly with 1/3 of execution time. Otherwise, we will take for an end-to-end implementation of any sort of an application, whether it be a complex application across the FSA segment. It can be done with roughly 1/3 of end-to-end implementation time turnaround. By virtue of that, all these dynamic deployments will be able to do. Nowadays, customers' expectation as well as internal IT's expectation is, internal business expectation is to create applications on the fly. So there comes the need for an application platform which is equally adept in terms of handling these dynamic implementation requirements, basically. So by virtue of our implementation experience, we find low-code application platforms are well suited for 4 buckets of use cases, where customer experience transformation comes into picture, a set of use cases which will ultimately aid in the growth of the organization. All the use cases you can talk about, any product, new product introduction, so on and so forth comes in that. The market share, okay, achievement or the growth of the market share, whichever use cases will be able to do that. The utmost seats at utmost net promoter score, as well as the cost of customer acquisition, which will be lesser. Okay, for all these kind of scenarios, customer experience transformation use cases, low codes are applicable. Then workplace innovation. I just talked about the total experience scenario, the employee experience. Okay, to empower employees. Okay, to have time as well as data to take instant decisions to make customers happy. All those sort of use cases comes in. Workplace innovation, process automation. I mentioned about dynamic, complex case management scenarios, application modernization to protect all the past investments in terms of IT assets, hardware assets, so on and so forth. The proven advantage of low-code platforms, if you ask, okay, roughly speaking, okay, on an average 6 to 10x faster time to market, close to 50+% of build as well as run cost saving, 4x time, again, roughly the reusability aspect, refactoring aspect, if at all you have to extend the application further, and 20 to 40% of the maintain year-on-year, the maintenance cost kind of aspect comes into picture. The enterprise scenarios, by virtue of our implementation experience, we found maximum applicability. The use cases will be B2B and B2C customer engagements across all the omni-channel scenarios. B2E2C means B2C interactions through online. All those scenarios across BFSI. Okay, I cannot point out one particular use case. Most of the use cases are better fit for that. Employee experience apps, which we talked about in terms of assuring EX transformation, and the core apps, okay, whether it is in BFS, okay, loan management, corporate lending, card, risk and compliance, as well as in insurance segment, okay, whether it's claim processing or normal policy administration, all these scenarios, okay, these low-code application platforms are equally applicable. So what we want to convey in this particular scenario is the most architecturally significant or business critical use case as per the organization's requirement can be used as a proof point in terms of adoption of low-code platforms. By virtue of implementing and seeing the whole life cycle, you yourself can get assessed the advantages of a low-code application platform. See, Connect's digital low-code application services predominantly revolves around the world's leading low-code application platform, OutSystems. Okay. We provide the consulting advisory services as far as the greenfield implementation is concerned, which are the architecturally and business significant use cases which can be picked up and shared for implementation, subsequent ROI-based assessment to be done and proceed with year-on-year implementations, etc. The implementation services, year-on-year AMS services for that comes as a part of that. One point I just want to highlight here is being a new way of implementation, etc., protecting existing investments, so on and so forth. We always suggest to have a center of excellence set up as part of the customer's IT premises, or as an extension of partners like ours premises, so that our umpteen number of architects will be able to leverage their experience in terms of the architectural best practices, as well as guide them on the right kind of implementation journey, so on and so forth. The key capability area, as I mentioned, architecture onwards, implementation and managed services it moves into. The differentiators being a lot of low-code application platforms available in the market. The key is having the right set of architects and leaders who will be able to implement that. An organization having right kind of cross-skilling strategy, the certification, as well as making dynamic skill pool available at any point in time of the customer's dynamic, ever-changing requirements. That's the key for an implementation partner in that scenario. And yeah, from our experience of decades of implementations, we can very well urge that for an OutSystem-based implementation partner, Connect Digital's low-code center of excellence can be of immense help. With this backdrop, I would invite Krishna, our solutions head BFSI from OutSystems, to give the final nuances of OutSystems low-code application platform. Krishna,
sure. Thanks a lot, Sajid, for that introduction and for a very insightful industry overview. Let me take it over from here. Hi, everyone. And today we are going to talk about OutSystems as the digital backbone for banking. I am going to superimpose the use cases. Sajid already talked about engagement layer, automation zone, and a system of records earlier. So connecting back to that, what we have been able to achieve for the leading banks across the world are these kind of use cases, driving these kind of use cases in a really short amount of time with a very high optimization levels, right? Some of the sample use cases that we have done across the banks are about KYC, know your customer kind of applications, asset management kind of applications, the online digital banking or digital experience for customers. Again, Sajid touched about omnichannel experience for customers in banking as well. We've delivered those kind of solutions, as well as core banking processes like accounts management, cards management, as well as sales and marketing applications for these banks, right? So from a relationship management, kind of management perspective. And how OutSystems helps by being a backbone for digital banking is that we are able to connect the existing investments or system of records into new engagements, right? So driving digital as well as driving agility in the business for banks. And going a bit deeper into OutSystems as a platform, think of OutSystems platform is like a Lego, where you are building these applications or assembling these applications using the pre-configured blocks that would give you the ability to create any kind of use cases that you want for the bank. Either it could be from a wealth management perspective, or from a omni-channel banking perspective, or from a mobile banking perspective, etc. So this is how OutSystems helps banks to assemble these applications in a very efficient way. And going back to the point of total experience transformation, OutSystems as a product addresses the CIO's top strategic priorities that we've seen in the market today. That is from a customer experience perspective, that is a CX perspective, as well as workplace innovation, which is nothing but the employee experience perspective, process automation, which is nothing but a digital experience, and application modernization, basically as a backbone to serve across these transformation initiatives. These are some of these use cases that we drive along with these banks for in these respective areas. And you can see what is the kind of benefits that we were able to give back to the banks because of these initiatives. And in line with what Sajid was talking before, we were able to kind of reduce the time to market by about 10x, 6 to 10x basically, and increase the throughput and productivity of developers by around 3 to 10x again, and 40 to 60% overall build cost savings, and 4x more reusability. Reusability is one way of being more agile and reducing the time to market. And about 50 to 75% less refactoring using OutSystems as a platform because of the faster time to market and the higher reusability perspective. And beyond the first project, then typically banks adopt OutSystems as a low-code platform. We've seen typically people start with smaller applications like tactical and employee applications, but then they quickly move on to building complex total transformation applications. Like, they move on to field services applications, like applications specific for tellers, customer service, as well as agent relations. And then we've seen people moving on to create massive B2C applications like online banking or corporate banking or wealth banking kind of applications. And then they move on to create core operations and applications, including CRMs and core banking services. And then they also build a lot of mission critical applications on top of the platform, like, loan origination system, loan management system, cards management system, lending platforms, so on and so forth. And these are some examples. I've taken 2 examples of commercial banking as well as digital banking or wealth management part of it. So these are some of the applications that we've delivered for our customers on top of the platform. Again, if you relate it back to the slide where we talked about OutSystems, helps you assemble these applications in a really efficient way. These are some of the examples that we've assembled for leading banks of, across the world. And, those ranges from, right from channel perspective, in the sense, applications that are talking to omni-channel users, applications that are helping you do the due diligence for the customer perspective, applications that helps you with cash management, as well as core banking and sales and marketing. And this is from a commercial banking perspective. And from an investments management perspective, you can see that the business processes that we've helped across the banking customers are, again, from channels, planning, servicing, performance, and sales and marketing. So these are some of the sample applications that we've helped customers build on OutSystems platform. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Nair and Mr. Gangatharan, for sharing with us all that Connect Digital is doing to create the perfect experience for their customers. Of course, our viewers are more than welcome to connect with them offline and see how you can partner together and make your OutSystems so much more comfortable. Thank you once again for joining us. It's now time for us to look forward to our first panel discussion of the day on exploring the potential of next generation platforms, where our expert panelists will be touching upon unified customer experiences, common enterprise platforms, and also discussing about the workflow orchestration across enterprises. All this and a lot more, all thanks to them. So please extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Ashwin Khurana, Chief Information Officer, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. May I also present to you Mr. Chandan Khaitan, Chief Executive Officer, Muthoot Digital Business. A very warm welcome to Mr. Sivakumar Nandipati, CDO, FedBank Financial Services. May I also present to you Mr. Kapil Jacob, Solution Consultant, ServiceNow. A very warm welcome to Mr. Shrikant Rajagopalan, Practice Head, Platform Services, Connect Business Solutions. And let us look forward to this session being moderated by Shresh George, Managing Director and Partner of BCG India. Over to all of you, and let us look forward to a very interactive discussion. Please do stay tuned.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this very exciting session. Let me kick off by giving you a little bit of context on why we are here. India is actually poised for a 23% growth in the banking sector to really truly deliver on a 5 trillion economy dream that we are working towards. And to support this dream of growth and innovation that will be both required to get our banking sector there, we have an esteemed panel with us who will take us through some of the big changes and trends that's happening on both the digital transformation side as well as what we are seeing with the evolution of a platform economy. So truly moving from a solution-based outlook that we've seen, previously, very targeted point solutions, to truly moving to a model which is thinking about an end-to-end journey on the digital side. There are many discussions that are underway on digitization that is truly front to back, and we'll hear some of that today from our panelists, where we see both transformations happening, which are client facing, customer facing, but also all the way through the back of the banking journey, where we are seeing significant improvement on productivity, on the experience that both employees and customers are facing today. So let me kick off the session. We have with us 5 panelists. We will soon have one more join. We have with us, let me just start in a random order. We have Chandan Ketan, who's the CEO of Muthoot Digital Business, who's joining us. We have Kapil Jacob, who's a senior solution consultant from ServiceNow. We have Ashwin Khurana, who's the CIO of Ujjain Small Bank, as well as significant experience working with multiple banking institutions, giving us his perspectives. We have Shrikant Rajgopalan, who's a practice head for Quest, implementing many of the ServiceNow implementations with over 2 decades of experience in digital transformation and implementation, who will bring us truly a technology view to this discussion. We'll also be joined by Shivkumar Nandipati, who's from Federal Bank NBFC, and he's the Chief Digital Officer for the FedFina, which is the NBFC fully owned by Federal Bank. So we have a great panel, both of very experienced bankers who will give us a view of how banking is thinking about the innovation. We have some new age bankers like Chandan Ketan, who's building digital banking solutions for very well-established banking houses like Muthoot, as well as technology practitioners like Shrikant and Kapil to add their view on how the sector is evolving. So with that, let me get kicked off. I'll start with Mr. Ketan here, and Chandan, please do give us your views. One of the big trends that is pushing us towards this is the customer demand. Customers are no more willing to just take what is offered by a typical banking service or product. And very interestingly, you actually come into the sector with a lot of customer, industry experience, having done this with Flipkart and many other consumer segments. So very curious to hear what you're seeing and what is the implication for the banking sector from a consumer perspective. So let's start with the key role of consumer, and then we'll work backwards.
Well, first of all, thanks, Shresha. Good morning to you, and good morning to the rest of the panelists, and good morning to attendees who are watching us and listening to us. I think, Shresha, you are talking about a very essential piece. And as you rightly said, so I come from consumer product industry and retail industry. And when I'm getting into banking, I am not seeing it very different, actually. Here we are giving services as compared to products, what I was giving in my past experiences. But in both of these, what we need to do actually is we need to, what I call or what I have learned is being customer backward. We need to solve for what customers are looking for, rather than building solutions and expecting the customer to adapt to it. And let me give you an example. Like in my past experience, we built a solution for Indian Kiranas, which are MSME, representative of the largest MSME sector. when we were building solution for them, we actually learned how do they purchase, how do they sell, how do they operate their 3 to 700 square feet store, right? And we build the solution around how they actually work and what their practices for last several decades. If we try and create something and we expect that they will adapt to it by changing their age-old habit, I don't think so that's going to happen, right? So as we are building solutions for services which are core banking services, I come from a lot of this whole consumer and retail background thinking that we should be solving for looking backwards from the consumers.
Great. No, thank you. And thank you for setting the scene on the nuances of some of these customer segments. Maybe picking up from that, Mr. Khurana, I'll come to you. You service a very similar sort of segment, and you have very unique segments that you're going after from, the small bank's perspective. Give us some, color into how does digital and technology truly play into how you're thinking about, how this industry is evolving, and what is the role of next-gen platforms in your segment?
Yeah, thanks, Shresha, for the insight and what you want to hear from me. I would say that if I have to sum up my last 25 years journey in the banking industry, then we started to work as technology teams in silos. Then we started to work as technology teams together. Then we started to become agile technology teams to be delivering for the bank. And now the journey is about not just agile technology team, it's the agile enterprise, right? The entire enterprise needs to be working in an agile form. So that's where we are today. And with mobile in everybody's hand, and if I have to look at banking transactions, 80% of the transactions happening out of that device, that becomes the most important device to provide the service on. And the service needs to be continuous. While we keep on hearing, fail fast, learn and move on. In banking, failure means you lose money. So failure is not an option that we look at. So we believe in making sure that what we are going to do on the platforms is going to provide the results in the way we are expecting it to be. So failures may be internal in nature for us when we are designing something, but when we are moved ahead of designing, then we are expecting things to be working as they have been designed. Or keep a very close watch through smaller POCs and things of those sort. How do platform come into the picture? I think I'll separate it into two bits. In the bank, we look at technology in two forms. One is the core, and the second one is the new technologies. So for us, it is very important that the core be robust, because if my core is not robust, whatever I do in new technologies will not be serviced the way it needs to be serviced. The example is, if I look at UPI transactions today, the transaction volume in the bank has gone up not double or triple, it's gone up maybe 10 to 15 times of what we used to do in the past, right? And that could only be sustained because the core was able to take in the volume that came in it from the front-end technologies. So we separate it out into two bits. We work to keep on making the core robust, and we want to take as much advantage as possible of the platform technologies that are around for a quicker deployment and change that the customer and the staff is expecting to happen in their day-to-day lives.
Right. No, great point, Ashwin. We also get caught up in all the new technologies, but you really brought the focus back on the core. Let me actually get Kapil in here. Kapil, many of the ServiceNow pieces, and please elaborate for us. You are trying to orchestrate many of these new technologies together, bring in automation, get scale for some of what Mr. Ashwin also brought. That scale becomes very critical as digital becomes the way of working and not the alternate channel we used to call a few years back. So could you just elaborate for us, how does this orchestration work across different tasks and across the end-to-end process as well?
Sure. It's great to be here. I'll actually start with, the world we live in, right? Everything is seamlessly connected. But despite that, what happens is that there are those silos, there are those disconnected organizations, and then you have that manual process. Now, you might be aware that BCG actually conducted a digital transformation project related survey. And what they found in 2020 was that about 70% of these projects fail. And they found one of the critical success factors for flipping that percentage was to use a business-led, modern, fit-for-purpose technology and a data platform, which could essentially scale digital use cases. Now, this is where ServiceNow comes into play, right? We are that modern, fit-for-purpose technology and data platform. What we essentially do is we orchestrate the flow of work within the enterprise, and we do this by doing three things: we optimize, we connect, and we create. So when I say optimize, we are optimizing processes by applying that workflow, by applying that automation. And then we can scale that using low code and no code as well. Connecting silos, what we do is, and I think one of the panelists was talking about the core and the new technologies. So if you're looking at these are two distinct pieces of technologies. You want an experience for your employees and customers that is seamless across this. If I can orchestrate the flow of information across these new and the core platforms and make that a seamless experience for employees and customers, that solves that problem of de-siloing these disjointed pieces, right? Then we create. What we mean by that is we are creating new value by enabling innovation at scale. This we do through process of automation, AI, low code, and then we can actually create new ways of doing work. So essentially, this is the value prop. And in doing this, we cater to 5 areas, right? Customer experience, employee experience, operating excellence, technology excellence, and then build and automate. So all of this using that single platform, which has native workflow, which has the hyper automation capability using RPA, which has pre-built mobile and conversational user experience, a common services data model that helps you cross leverage that data across that enterprise, and then 200 API connectors for both modern and legacy systems. So essentially, this is what the platform brings. And then going back to what Chandan said, it's all about the persona, right? You can't build a system that, you're force fitting on a persona. You have to be able to make the system usable for that persona. That's again what the platform provides. So essentially, we are that master orchestrator, or what we call the platforms for the enterprise.
All right. No, great, Kapil, and good to hear that you're reading some BCG reports. That's a good one. So, Kapil, I think you've laid out what the platform truly does, right? It's actually that seamless experience, connecting all these silos together, and then obviously innovating on top. Maybe Shivkumar, I'll come to you. You've been leading the digital transformation for the NBFC for quite a few years now. What kind of platforms are we truly leveraging? Because what are the different types of platforms, technologies that the banks and NBFCs have started leveraging, and are you starting to see some implications, impact of that as well?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So as Kapil have pointed it from the systems perspective, I wanted to speak more on the platforms leverage from the customer perspective. I take from the place where Chandan has left that. So generally we build in a manner, in spite of these are the skill set we have and we wanted, we can build this project A, project C. More than that, it's better to see from the customer lens. Customer needs this. So what all we have to do and walk backwards actually. So maybe for the same NBFC journey, in case if I have to explain from the customer lens how the platforms are getting leveraged. For the new customer walk-ins, predominantly it's on the digital marketing which we do. People see it over the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well on the marketing campaigns. And that's how also they get to know, along with, of course, anyway, the physical presence exists. The topic here is to more speak on the customer lifecycle for the digital. So I'm just going to highlight there. And on the trust perspective, there are Google reviews, there are a lot of Bing reviews or other various portals of the branch listings which happen reviews, along with the testimonials which are in the verbose as well as the video format, which are coupled together over YouTube and all that stuff, also builds the trust for the people. Account openings, I'll speak little less because there's video KYC. Even RBI also has said you can guys go ahead. And new services, what people use it to come to branches and understand that can be seen through the website, customer app, mobile apps, portals as well, and cross sell, upsell also happens there for the customers to know what are other services it provides. And in fact, due to the data customization, for the personalization based on the data, we can try to showcase what customer wants. Most of these targeted segment customers, maybe they would interest in this secondary product also, and it helps us to choose that. Customer payments, demonetization itself has made our life easy. So a lot of payments are happening on digital more than people coming. And there's a new thing which has happened on the physical transfer. I'll say that via Amazon, when the gold coin can come, why not the gold loan can come to home? That's the concept which people have thought through, and there's a lot of companies, fintech companies had come over. Even at FedFina, we do have a doorstep golden service operated at from 189 branches, close to 189 branches. If there's any customer service or support, so while there is glossary and FAQs are on website, but we are fine-tuned to build with chatbots, conversational experience to customers, so they understand. It sometimes feels like it's really the person chatting off, and that's also relatively better stuff. And one use case, since I spoke on collections, chatbots. For the collections also, we were leveraging on the humanized voice chatbot. So where customer gets the reminder, he doesn't go NPA, or his reminder happens, he doesn't pass through due pass date. So all this stuff happens, and the physical somehow is getting blended with digital. I think I should say, like last 2-3 years, the marriage has happened. In Telugu, we have 3 knots we tie for the marriage. If I have to say them, demonetization is the first knot, Zio is the second knot, and COVID is the third knot, which made it much simpler. So that's how all the platforms, website, app, emails, communication, chatbots, everything are getting leveraged.
Got it. No, that's a great way to pull the 3 maybe fortunate and unfortunate events together, Shivkumar, for our digital transformation journey. Picking on, you started talking about many of these services, and Shrikant, no one better than you to kind of explain this to us. We all understand everything is a service right now, right? SaaS is the biggest, most probably used word now in the Indian market when it comes to technology. But you also are leading many aspects of banking as a service and BPaaS, which is many of the processes as the service as well. Can you just explain to us a bit of, what is the BPaaS trend and how exactly it's playing out in the banking sector?
Thanks, Risha, and good morning to all. It's great to be here. We actually come between, say, the requirements of the bank and what Kapil laid out as the platform capabilities. We as system integrators actually are the key players in this whole ecosystem, where we bring in the capabilities of the platform and how it can be leveraged by financial institutions, banks. The other aspect that we are seeing increasingly is the sort of requirements from the banks or the financial institutions on the service part of it. Yes, we are all very clear about the solutions, the capabilities of the platform, how they can be leveraged to improve better customer experience, have that seamless experience between different channels. So these are some of the capabilities of the platform which a service now can bring to the table. Apart from the other angle, the customers are increasingly looking for now is the service aspect to it. Okay, now how do you bundle these things and then take it to a customer? Okay, so the service angle, which we call BPaaS in our terminology, business process as a service, is something what we as system integrators are seeing with most customers. Let's take an example. We spoke about KYC, we spoke about collections. Okay, these are some of the things which still need people to go collect documents. Okay, scan it, send it. We need to have people on the ground to do some of these work. Okay, so Quest, is one of the largest BPO players in India. And when we are talking to customers like banks, okay, they're saying if you can offer these solutions on a platform like ServiceNow as a bundled service to us, where you also do the system integration, please, but also take care of running it as a service with an outcome-based pricing. Okay, so the customers are not looking to just invest in the licenses on the platform. Okay, they are looking something beyond that. Now, how we actually leverage the licenses and sort of tie it to an outcome-based model where we are responsible as system integrators to run this process efficiently with our backend engine, okay, with our whole expertise in the BPO space. And then we sort of tied up with the customer, saying that we run this service for you, we leverage the capabilities of the platform, okay, offer that new age platform to you, which will be integrated with your core banking system, with the other system in the enterprise, and then offer you as a service. So we come in and say, we offer this service to you, you pay as service, we will monetize this model for you. This is the increasing ask from the customers now. Okay, there are a lot of new age platforms with sort of infinite capabilities now. So now, how do we actually take it to the next step? So we have gone through development using Java, VB, and now we have moved to an age where it's more platform driven. You have platforms for most of the solutions today. Any problem, you have a platform which can address those solutions, and you also have low code, no code capabilities in the platform, which can also tailor your solution to meet your exact business requirement. The next step is, how do we monetize it, especially in an Indian market context, where you bring in that whole service angle also, and then have a bundled offering to the customers where we provide a service, use the capabilities of the platform, and ensure that the service probably moves to the next level, or the person on the ground is used to an optimum capacity. You use tools like ServiceNow to ensure that you sort of get maximum out of the people who are your field service agents, or doing your collections. You get most sort of value from people on the ground. So this is what we are as system integrators seeing as a trend now, where it is all about the service. There's a specific service, you get a solution for that service, monetize that service, and then take it to the customer, where we leverage the power of the platform, but we are ultimately responsible for the SLAs, and also have a sort of monetary play, wherein it's not just the licenses that they are buying, they are enrolling for a service.
Great. No, Srikanth, very, very well put. There is a plethora of platforms and services and solutions, and being able to actually get value from it is probably one of the big challenges most of the audience will also relate to. Let me just build on your thread on the Indian context, and Chandan, I will come to you on this one. We have a very unique ecosystem where, our underlying financial infrastructure is just getting better and better. Shivkumar had also pointed to UPI and some of the payment infrastructure. But with Oken and many other elements kind of building on top, we will land with very, very sophisticated infrastructure in the coming years, and probably the most leading globally. But our customers are quite different, with very unique needs. And Chandan, you touched upon it, saying, if it's a Kirana store, having done something for the last 2 decades, we are not going to get to force them into a new model. So what does it truly mean in the Indian context, the whole digital journey? Is it truly digital? Are there other nuances that we should be cognizant of? And as you are building a new bank, almost, how do you think of these implications?
Yeah. No, thanks, Shresha, for this. See, I think this is a very, very important point for all of us to dwell upon, right? Because we are solving for a unique set of consumer and customers. For us in Muthoot Digital, we are actually focusing on, I would say, 3 things. One is, how do we keep customer at the center of whatever we work on, right? Our co-customer is the common man of India and the MSME, right? And what is important actually is that we focus as a solution provider, as a platform, we focus in providing stuff which are relevant and simple for them, and rather than focusing on making it over sophisticated. So that is one piece. How do we offer our product and services to the consumers? That's one piece. The second piece actually is that how do we ensure that we reach to the consumer or consumer reach to us? And we have seen more than often that our consumers are evolving and our consumers are diverse set of individuals. For some, having something been delivered end-to-end digital, they will adapt to it. For some, they may adapt to it, a part of it, but they will still be needing a bit of hand-holding. And there are some, they may not be able to adapt to it because of the age, exposure, XYZ. And we need to actually create a seamless solution where we give them 100% assistance, right? And that's what we are trying to solve actually in Muthoot Digital for this common man and MSME. How do we create something we call as phygital, which is a combination or seamless integration of physical and digital, and keeping each of these consumers and how they are evolving. How do we give our service and they actually are able to reach and consume us in the most seamless and integrated fashion possible? The third thing which I'll actually talk about is that you have talked about what you solve for the consumer. How do you actually reach out to them? But how do you make your platform enriched? And as we are building Muthoot Digital, we are actually building something which is going to be B2B, B2C, and B2B2C. What is most important actually is that we keep our platform as open as possible so that it is seamlessly integrated with ecosystem at large, so that we are able to give consumers what they want and wherever they want, right? And in summary, what I always keep on saying is that as a solution or a platform, you need to be driven by wherever, however, and whenever, right? And that's how our consumers will be actually looking at us.
Got it. No, great, Chandan, and thanks for summarizing that for us. Maybe Ashwin, if you could elaborate a bit more on, so what, right? So Chandan spoke about it's important to keep the consumer at the center of it and build with the nuances of what they are looking for. You have actually built this over the last couple of decades over different types of segments. What are some of the platforms, technologies you're leveraging to make that, both seamlessness as well as the innovation kick in the bank?
To take it from where Chandan left, the basic framework that we applied all through the development activities that we carried out for the customer or for staff was we used to apply the KISS formula, right? So it is known as keep it simple and stupid. We said keep it simple and secure. So I think that's our key framework that we apply. We don't want to crowd a solution with things that the customer may not want to use. We would want to crowd the solution with something which customer is using on a frequent basis. And frequent in banking is even if it is used 10 times a month, right? So that's how we look at it and we design it. Wherever it is not that frequent, we adopt the phygital route, as mentioned by Chandan. So let's not complicate things in the hands of the user. The best example is WhatsApp. Nobody trains people on WhatsApp. People learn to use it themselves, right? Many banks are now coming up with WhatsApp on banking on WhatsApp, and you don't train them. You just send a message and people start to use it, right? So the adoption is quite high in that space because that's one tool everybody is comfortable with. Coming to platforms, I feel there are some good platforms that we have used in the past, and one of them that immediately comes to mind is Salesforce. That was one platform where quite a bit of use has happened in banks, and that use is growing, right? I think the other bit that I would say is platforms on which you start to build yourselves, because what is felt is the need to develop something quickly, the time to market, right, is becoming extremely critical. Gone are the days where a project would take 18 months to complete and we will all be waiting for the project to go through. I think what people want to see is week on week, what can we come out with. So that's an important bit. The other important bit is how do we structure our technology teams, right? Because the familiarity with what the organization needs is extremely important. And that is something that we need to be adopting a hybrid model rather than a completely outsourced or a completely internal team model. And we need to find that right balance where we are able to still maintain the speed. The dependency should be to make things quicker and not really intelligence. Intelligence should come from within is what I feel if one wants to be successful on platforms. The third thing is, yes, you may not know everything about the product you need, but the platform should allow us to adopt and change quickly to move in the direction that we need to move. I hear about so many low-code, no-code platforms, but believe me, the amount of effort we are spending to make a change on those platforms is no joke. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes money. So yeah. Is there anything that we find close to what we have to achieve? I would say there are a couple of platforms there which need expertise within to make it successful. Is how I would look at. I mean, ultimately, the aim is to make things faster, and to ensure that you are in the market early to take the benefit of it, and not late to just be a follower. So I think that's.
Got it. No, I think, and thank you, Ashwin, for touching on the the tech function of the future as well, right? Because this is truly a challenging space, and with our current talent crunch, not an easy one to solve either. But let me pick on the thread of the platform piece that you were speaking about, and the mixture of various platforms and the use cases on some of them. Maybe Kapil, to your point, you spoke about how the platform can be, the seamless layer between all of these elements. Give us a bit more, depth and color on, in our Indian context, where is this getting leveraged? What kind of challenges are we solving with the ServiceNow platform?
Sure, Shreya. I think a very good conversation, and interestingly, the use case that I am going to elaborate, it kind of covers the themes that both Chandan and Ashwin talked about. So I'll just repeat the themes just to be sure I heard it right. One, we were talking about customer and employee at the center. That was one theme that was consistent. Second, Ashwin talked about intuitiveness of the platform. He also talked about building on that platform, right? The capability to build something on this platform. And then platform should have its own intelligence. These are the themes that he talked about. Now, one of the leading banks in India, it had about 12 to 15 years worth of technology islands. Over a period of time, they built technology islands there. What also started happening was that there's that tech debt that happens, right? Especially when you have like 14-point solutions. So this leads to blocking your productivity gain and stifling innovation. The other challenge that bank was facing was it was having a lot of system outages, and due to this, there was even punitive action by regulators. They had asset compliance issues. And when the COVID pandemic started, what happened was that the employee experience, the user experience was accentuated, that they had a really bad problem there. And the IT team was flooded with a lot of requests regarding productivity, right? This bank also had about 300 plus custom Lotus Notes applications, which they had built over a period of 12 years. Now, Ashwin rightly pointed out that sometimes what happens is that we call the term developer velocity, right? This is related to innovation. Developer velocity takes a hit when you're using legacy platforms and you're not able to push in code fast. These were the bunch of problems that this bank was facing. As I mentioned earlier, we have solutions across customer experience, employee experience, operating excellence, technology excellence, and build and automate. in this scenario, all of this came together. So they did a core IT modernization. They replaced their legacy systems with our IT service management, our IT operations management, our IT asset management, which is hardware asset and software assets. So this took care of their IT modernization needs. Then they brought in our platform capability on employee service center. So this took care of their employee experience needs. And then finally, creative workflows. So we have low code, no code capability on the platform. This includes, RPA kind of capability. It includes build your own, workflow kind of capability. And what this did is, so they tried to rationalize those 300 custom Lotus Notes application. Now they were able to deploy enterprise applications quicker and faster. Obviously, better employee experience, and then the reduced cost of maintaining those custom legacy applications. So that's that entire story.
Got it. No, that's good. And maybe a couple building on that, Shivkumar, from your experience, these are some of the areas which are starting to truly become viable. Where have you seen the impact? I mean, we're talking about a plethora of use cases and applications, but where are you starting to see some true impact from your technology implementations?
Yes, like how Ashwin pointed, no, customer needs something. So if it is available over WhatsApp, nobody needs to train. So while WhatsApp is something as covered, I wanted to cover more on the Voicebots actually, where the conversation has become much more easier. People don't want to write the forms and submit, nor go to branch, stand and understand, and put some message and leave it. Maybe they wanted an instant solution. They wanted to express their emotions, feelings, and thanks to AI and ASR, where automatic speech recognition and which has helped to understand these things and convert the people's conversation into the respective code, so that people would be able to speak and their problems would be solved. There are a couple of use cases we can see actually in the NBFC industry as well. Predominantly, like I have actually touched upon the collections, where reminders or the calls for DPD, trying to tell them in a softer tone. The bot doesn't get angry the number of times you speak also. So that's one smoother case. And leads qualification is also another case which we can help customers or the prospects to onboard and get all the details. Maybe it can actually help between reaching to the right respective branch manager to qualify or disqualify, instead of the traditional way of telecaller doing it. There are some other use cases like on the gold loan business, when there is a top-up facility available to the gold prices shooting up, we're mentioning them the respective facility, and this happens not structurally, this is more dependent on the gold loan. Or on the other side, on the margin calls, if the gold prices are fallen down. So these are some of the use cases where the reminders and all can go. But only one point to know was, when we are on the voice bots and we are training that for the first time, the use case of it is prone to fail, because the bot is very new to the system and you have fed your knowledge and inputs, whatever you thought through, all the elements and conversations can be there. But over the period of time, when you keep someone assigned to that, say, product manager kind of setup and understand what customers are asking, speaking, then the bot also improves on it. Not just that, we would also get a lot of new insights or some business impactful changes which we can take from that conversation. So this is one area which I feel it will grow here.
Got it. No, great. And you finished with a good point on impact. And Shrikant, I'll come to you as we started with this whole BPaaS and how you're able to monetize and show impact here. Can you give us maybe some specifics, right? Like, where are we seeing the impact? What are the kind of metrics that we are looking at, whether it's front of office like leads and others that Shivkumar spoke about, or back office like collections, field management, and so on?
Yeah, probably I would take it from where Kapil probably left off, because Kapil addressed the issues where the customers are facing and how a platform can actually address these challenges. Now, where we coming from is, see, if you look at the business, that question, the BPO business, we are sort of associated with some of these banks, financial institutions for more than 10 years, 15 years. So we exactly know their pain points, okay, and where we can add value. So that is where using these platforms like ServiceNow, we will probably able to tailor solutions or create solutions to the banks where we'll be able to sort of improve productivity in process like collections, which we are already running for some of these banks. Okay.
Right.
And as part of our business in Quest, we do a lot of collections. We cover about 95% of the PIN codes in India today. So if we have to sort of get to the next level of service, how do we engage these field service agents better? Okay, how do we do intelligent routing for these agents? Okay, that is where using our expertise and the power of platform, what Kapil was talking about, we can sort of synergize that and take it to the customers and show them that you are already on these platforms, but we can typically build some custom applications for you and leverage the power of the platforms to ensure that the business process that we have signed up for, there is a distinct improvement in the productivity as far as these processes are concerned. And tool like ServiceNow has a lot of capability on field service management, intelligent routing. How do you optimize the agent? Okay, so this is where we come in and say, okay, we will leverage this. We have our domain expertise in collections. We know how KYC is done. We know how insurance administration is done. So we build sort of applications like a Loan Connect where we use the power of the platform, build a tailored solution, and run that solution for these customers.
Got it.
This is the whole BPaaS theme that we are coming up with, where we leverage the power of the platform. We understand the pain points of the bank. Okay, we are already signed up with the customers for specific KPIs, but we also understand their business KPIs and jointly build a solution and then take it to the customers. It could be an area of collection, it could be KYC, it could be insurance administration. And as Kapil said, building these solutions on a service now is easy. For a system integrator like us, it's pretty easy. I mean, we don't have to spend 16 weeks, 18 weeks to sort of come up with these solutions. We can quickly come up with these solutions, demonstrate the power of those solutions, and then possibly take it to the next level. So this is where this whole expertise and this service as a model, now everything is sort of tuning towards everything is a service is the buzzword today.
Right.
So I think
Shrikant, I'm just conscious of time. I think that's a great point on shared outcomes for the providers and the bank. Maybe I will close with that. Maybe one word answer from each of you to finish. The one technology you think will scale and make a difference, right? And maybe Ashwin, I'll start with you and we can just go in any order. Just one word.
You said one word, I will call it idiot proof.
Idiot proof. Okay, Chandan?
Solving for the non-English speaking users, actually.
Non-English speaking, great. Shrikant?
Hyper automation and low code, no code.
Great. Kapil?
ServiceNow.
Great. Shivkumar?
Spatial learning.
Okay, spatial learning. Excellent. Thank you so much, team. It was fantastic interaction, and thank you for so openly sharing your views. I think a few things maybe I will take away from this session is surely on thinking, keeping customer in the center and working backwards. Seamless, simple implementation of technology, and to Ashwin's point, we really don't have an option for failure, right? This is banking and there's no room for error here. So building something that's secure and stable probably are the couple of things I'll take away. Again, thank you so much for being a great panel, and hopefully audience has taken away a few things. Isha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. George. I think you always do make every panel so very interesting by balancing it out so very well. And when we have such a diverse panel with us, it's amazing to hear all those experiences. We did love the rapid fire that all of you all closed with. So a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of learning elements for our viewers there, so all of us really do agree on the fact that user experience needs to be seamless, and how next generation platforms can really address the various issues that customers are facing, the impact on technology implications, and how we can work with these solutions to creating a better customer experience. Thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure listening in, and we really appreciate all of you joining us. And for all our viewers, let us tell you that we have some amazing sessions put together for you right here. So please do stay tuned as we get set for our next keynote session on accelerated digital transformation, where our speaker will be focusing a lot about leveraging digital tools, talking about faster business outcomes, and a lot more. So please do extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Arjun Ramaraju, Chief Executive Officer, Connect Business Solutions.
Hello, esteemed speakers, dear delegates, and everyone who has taken time out to attend this event. A very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Team Connect. Also, thank you, ET, for all the media support. So what I'll talk about over the next 15-20 minutes is briefly introduce Connect and also talk about our point of view and how we are helping customers in accelerating digital transformation. So Connect, as some of you would know, and for some for whom Connect is new, Connect has been in the industry for almost more than 17 years now. We are a team of almost close to 40,000 employees today. BFSI is the largest industry that we focus on today. Right. So in the BFSI sector, we work with almost more than 20 banks, more than 20 NBFCs. It's a team of almost 25,000 people of 40,000 just working for BFSI customers, right? So if you look at what we do, there's a lot of work we do on the front office customer lifecycle management, both inbound, outbound. There's a lot of work we do on the BFSI back office, mid and the back office around the whole customer lending and the loan processing work. We are India's largest professionally run collections company. And there's a lot of work that we have started to do on the IT services side as well. So fairly comprehensive portfolio, right? And if you look at it, we probably handle as a company about 600 million customer touch points, more than 20 languages. We cover India's 94% of India's PIN codes. So I would say from an overall perspective, very strong understanding and deep expertise around the whole front and the back office in the BFSI sector, right? And that's something that we are proud of, fairly strong NPS in this particular sector, right? One of the things that we did about a year back is we relooked at our purpose statement, right? And we said, why do we exist as a company, right? And the more we looked at it, the more it was evident that we should be a trusted partner for our clients in helping them grow revenues, in helping them enable efficiencies and enhance customer experience, right? And eventually we have to play a role in helping the customers on these three key areas, right? And so the more once we did it, it was very apparent as to what should be the focus on how we go about doing that, all right? And I think I'm just briefly putting out the trends that we see in the industry. And I think for all of you, I think this is very evident, right? And I'm sure, I think, and this is nothing new here, but I think if you look at the key trends today, I think across the board, BFSI customers are, I think all of you are looking at how do you enhance customer experience, right? And how do we look at customer journeys are taken care? How do you make sure there are new operating models that you should look, right? Because the whole industry is getting disrupted. So what are the new operating models to thrive in? The power of data and what are the insights that you're able to gather from data, right? And cybersecurity is a boardroom item today, right? So the focus on cybersecurity is very strong, right? And also primarily newer ways of working, right? I mean, it's about how do we work with the ecosystem more? How do we work with the fintech players more? How do we work with the entire ecosystem of player? And how do we rejig internal ways of working and external ways of working in this new model, right? So those are the trends that I think I'm sure all of you recognize that we see, right? We are also cognizant today that customers are already undertaking digital transformation. So it is no longer something new, right? And we are also cognizant that when we look at the digital transformation, every enterprise has their own journey. There is no one size fits all for this, right? And then we did some studies, and I think we could resonate with, I think, what ThoughtWorks had put together, and what does it take to succeed in this area of hyper disruption, right? And I think these are trends that we could associate with either with successful enterprises who have done transformation, or within enterprises where there are examples of successful transformation, right? One, I think if you look at the key ones, I think is everything about how do we ensure all of the programs are geared towards delivering value to customers, all right, and make sure that everything is around value to customers. Second, how do you make sure that we are able to get the platforms right through and leverage insights and make sure that we work around rejigging the whole platforms for customers, right? Next, we said, I think more than large transformation programs, I think small incremental initiatives, digital initiatives are giving more value to customers. Fourth, we are looking at newer operating models, right? I mean, we are looking at, I think, successful enterprises and initiatives are looking at operating models and digital programs which look at business outcomes and digital solutions, right? Next, it's about how do we have teams around an engineering mindset and a delivery model, because eventually it is not just about competencies, but how do we re-engineer platforms, re-engineer applications, re-engineer solutions around that, right? And I think when we look at all of them, they need to eventually come together to create a very efficient, effective, and sustainable digital plans which bring together the front, middle, and the back office together. Correct. So when we looked at all of that, we said, okay, how do we make sure that we are there as a partner to help our customers so that we are able to get these best practices and we are able to help our customers in accelerating digital transformation. So the focus that we put together was essentially making sure that customers are already underway in their programs, and can we look at, helping them in advancing or accelerating that, all right? So the first thing that we have done, I think, over the last year and a half is really bring together a team, a core digital team from the industry, right? So I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but just to give you comfort that the team today that is focusing within Connect on the digital competencies and the digital services, essentially are a team that have come together from the industry across several reputed companies within the company to be able to help our customers in the journey, right? So we have a core digital team well underway now there. So from overall digital IT services team, it's a team of almost 300 people. And I think our endeavor is to get to about a couple of thousand people on this within the next 12 months. So what are the ingredients? Now, when we look at it, we first said we should look at, when we have the team, we should look at the key competencies that we have, right? So we have set up key competency centers today, right? The first competency center is what we have is around the whole customer experience and digital engineering, right? And app modernization, right? So this team focuses on this particular key area. Second is around data analytics and AI. Third is around business platforms, largely around platforms such as ServiceNow and Salesforce. All right. Fourth is around process automation, right? Largely around everything that we can do on RPA and some of the aspects around on the integration side. Next is around infra and cloud services, right? What we can look at it, and finally around cybersecurity, right? So today we have at a company level within Connect Digital, we have all of the 6 competencies, and they're underlined by strong technology partnerships that are detailed below, right? So this team is in place. The team is already working with several customers, and I think the reason I bring out 2-3 things here is when we look at, as I think the trend and I think the best practices spoke about, it's very important today to look at how do we get newer operating models. we believe one way of getting new operating models is leveraging the power of workflow. So, and hence, for example, a partnership with ServiceNow becomes very important because we're leveraging workflows to bring together different teams in a company, working together to look at customer outcomes. All right. Second, we look at low code, no code, right? I mean, how do we look at accelerating digital transformation through several small leaps rather than large transformations? So when we have to look to do that, low code, no code becomes very important. So there, for example, our partnerships with tech companies like OutSystems is very important because we can bring low code, no code competencies to you and help you on those digital initiatives. All right. Third, when we again look at incrementals, automation becomes important, right? So the hence the partnerships, for example, with some of the other companies like UiPath becomes important in rolling out automation programs, right? So I'm just trying to call out some of the things and our working practices to make sure we are able to accelerate transformation for you in ways that can add significant value. Second, given our strong focus on the business process management, right? I think when we are looking at essentially making an impact on business outcomes, platforms become important. So today at a company level, we have set up 3 core platforms, right? The one is the whole thing around the front office, right? And essentially here it is about customer experience, customer service, and especially helping them on their outbound sales, right? So a service call today is turning into a service call is turning into a sales call. So how do we enable technology and services to be able to do that? Second is our entire focus around the efficiency part and the whole lending life cycle. And the third platform is around the collections part. So what have we done in each of the 3 areas, right? What we have done is in each of the platforms, we have brought together a number of technology accelerators that can help put together processes and that can get to business outcomes, right? So today, when you look at many of the institutions, there are contact centers, right? But how do we get contact center of the future? And more importantly, how do we get it quickly, correct? So how do we enable customers to be on that journey? And that's where we bring components of our platform that can help them, and also some of the tech alliances that we have to help them on their modernization journey. And I spoke about how do we get service calls into sales calls, correct? And if you have to do it, it's very important that our folks are able to do it very well. So that's where our sales in a box and a number of accelerators that we have built become important. Second, on the lending life cycle, across the board, customers are looking at better lead management. They're looking at better turnaround time. And what used to take days for essentially processing is now getting to be a few hours. So how do we look at the whole aspect of it from the turnaround time, from the efficiency part, and increased better lead generation become important. So that's what we have done there. And on collections, it's primarily about reducing the cost of collections and increasing the collection efficiency. So what have we done? So what is our model today? So we have technology through our platforms, which our customers can leverage in parts or in the whole platform as it is. And we have the operations competencies. So for many of our customers, when they're introducing, let's say, new products in the market, they don't necessarily need to go through a separate tech initiative and a separate ops initiative. We can bring components of a platform and bring that on board and provide the operations capability in these 3 areas. So here, our model is about clear business outcomes, leveraging through our platforms or leveraging through a combination of our platforms and operations for our customers. That's the second model on the services that we are able to offer in the BFSI space. The third one, as I spoke about in the key trends for successful digital transformation, it is eventually any digital program should touch about or should make an impact on customer value, right? So when you have to look at customer value and customer journey mapping and customer experience, it's very important to look at all aspects of that, right? So we have a dedicated team just focusing on the CX practice, right? So they look at best practices, they look at CX strategy, they look at the voice of the customer, they look at the journey mapping, they look at all of the current operational data, they look at how do we enhance the employees who are serving the customer. There are multiple channels today. There is the branches, there is the contact center, there are the back office. How do we get all of them on a seamless platform? And more importantly, how do we get a CX culture within the company, right? So today, our practice on CX focuses on a number of things because eventually we believe digital transformation, as I said, should yield customer experience and improved customer improved value to the customer. And finally, we are also, as I said, cognizant that many of our customers already have their current digital programs, right? And many of them also have teams today. But we also notice that many of them are always trying to solve today's problem, where some of them are trying to solve tomorrow's problem, right? Now, how do you make sure we look to have the digital competencies for tomorrow? And which is where I think the business innovation labs that we have can potentially help customers. So what does this mean, right? This essentially means we look to enhance our customers' existing digital teams by setting up an extended center of excellence or an extended innovation lab. It can be in technology areas or it can be in business areas, right? Business areas can be front office, or business areas can be the back office, it can be in technology areas, be it in data, it could be in automation, it could be in digital engineering. And so we set up these innovation labs. So we are able to get the ability to work with the ecosystem, including startups, including other vendors, including academic institutions. So we're able to get these teams working to supplement your existing teams. And I would say the key value that you get here is, because we are an extended partner, right? We are constantly not thinking of just looking at services, but we're looking at thinking of problems for tomorrow for you. And we are able to constantly come up with best practices, right? And I think the differentiating factor here for us is our business understanding, right? So we're able to look at, again, technology to look at business. So today we are able to initiate this for a few customers. And I think we really believe the concept of innovation labs as an extended partner for you can make a big difference to solving problems for tomorrow. So what does it all mean? What does it mean from a Connect Digital perspective? So what it essentially means from our perspective is leveraging our extensive industry knowledge, extensive BFSI industry knowledge because of the process or the operations experience that we have today, leveraging the competency centers that we have that I spoke about, leveraging the partnerships that we have today, the innovation labs underpinned by the CX practice and the frameworks and the platforms that we have today. So we believe we can bring all of this together, right? And we can help accelerate accelerate your digital transformation, but more importantly, make sure this digital transformation is leading to business outcomes. All right. So that's essentially Connect Digital. That's essentially how we believe we can make a difference to you and help you accelerate your transformation programs. So with that, I would like to say thanks. Happy to take any questions. But more importantly, thanks again for taking the time, and look forward to an opportunity to help you in your transformation programs. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us, and thank you for sharing with us how Connect Business Solutions can really help customers accelerate their digital transformation. It's been a pleasure listening in. Thank you once again for being a part of this spectacular show. And it's now time for us to look forward to a very special interview session on cybersecurity risk management, prioritizing threats with strategic approach, where we will be touching upon cybersecurity challenges in Indian banking system, RBI regulatory compliances, amongst other things. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. P. Jayaram, Cybersecurity Advisor. The session will be moderated by Mr. Mohan Channasamudra, Chief Business Officer, Connect Business Solution. I welcome both of you, gentlemen, and let us look forward to this very engaging interview.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to welcome one of our key strategic cybersecurity advisor to our discussion today on the session to talk about the cybersecurity challenges in the Indian banking and also the strategic approach we need to take. Very happy to welcome Mr. Paramalai Jayaraman, aka JPM, as he is very fondly called in the industry. Let me talk about his credentials, the vast experience he brings in this space. For over 30 years, Mr. Paramalai or JPM has been advising on the cybersecurity strategy and the cyber governance, particularly for the various Indian banking and financial services industry companies and also other industries as well. He brings in more 3 decades of experience in the information cybersecurity, risk management, and governance domain. Prior to this, he has been working with the Reserve Bank Information Technology Limited, which is an entity of RBI, and helping in the systems audit vertical and assisting the Reserve Bank of India in spearheading the risk-based supervision through security audits and incident analytics towards enhancing cyber resilience in the Indian banking sector. So a perfect gentleman to ask some of the questions about the challenges in the industry today. So welcome to the conversation, Mr. JPM.
Good afternoon, Mohan. It was my privilege to talk to you. Thank you for your nice introduction, and I'm humbled. Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Let me just straight away shoot some of the questions. And the first and foremost, let me put it to you, right? In the last 2 years, obviously, we have all gone through a very turbulent time, and particularly in the banking industry, there has been profound change in the business models, how it is being operating, and a lot of digital transitions happening. So in this context, would like to understand from you, what do you see as some of the key cybersecurity challenges facing the Indian banking system?
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. I think it's nice to note now, one side, the digitization is going up significantly. In India, the digitization was going up significantly higher, but COVID-19 further accelerated the digitization. So naturally, which means more and more digitization happening, naturally India and in particular banking sector becomes a good target for the cyber criminals. What I noticed is they're not going after some big sophisticated attack mechanisms. The basic cybersecurity hygiene mechanisms, simple like password, patch, basic measures what organizations are supposed to take, that's not being taken. That's leading into we are falling prey into the cyber security attacks. That's one part of the story. Second is the governance, as you told earlier, that plays a very vital role. Organization, when you talk about governance, the risk assessments, the top management support, periodic review by board and senior management team, those things playing a very vital role. The third, what I want to highlight, which is very important, similar to any other field in the digitization, there's a huge supply demand on the cybersecurity talent. So that's also adding pressure for the banks in particular. So that's what broadly I would like to highlight.
Absolutely, very valid and very relevant, JPM. And having said that, like there are so many technology solutions in the market today, right? And so many partners engaging with customers, talking about the various solutions. But how does the customer go about in the banking industry to decide which technology to procure? How to safeguard their enterprise as such? Generally, is there a guideline that they need to look into?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question, and this is my favorite topic too. When it comes to the cyber security, it's quite unfortunate people thinking this is yet another technology, the overall cyber security itself. Unfortunately, that's not true. There are various means of technology deployed in the organization. It could be banking or any other sector, particularly banking, since the topic of relevance is banking. And those technologies, first of all, we need to understand those technologies deployed for the purpose of operationalizing the business processes. So what's happening today, to safeguard the operational processes and to safeguard the enterprise information assets, as you rightly called out, technologies, security technologies coming into play. So what's happening today, various technologies coming out in the security space. I can rattle down few just to get example, like for example, the IDS, intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system, firewalls, web application firewalls, spam gateways, mail gateways. This is just, I would say, just 1 out of 100, I would say, whatever I told, right? So the list goes on and on. Unfortunately, what's happening today, when we go and find some technologies, some vulnerabilities, some issues which the organization need to mitigate, immediately they started deploying technologies. So there should be a systematic risk-based approach. And what is the risk organization facing? What is the mitigation factor? Which technology will help in mitigating the security risk, what they forecast or what is the vulnerability they expect, and then deploy. And the solution starts now. Unfortunately, what's happening, people directly plug and play a technology and it doesn't stop there. People forget it after that. I used to take an example of a Hero Honda, olden days, fill it, shut it, forget it. Technology doesn't work like that. The moment we buy a technology and implement, it starts from there. Similar to our human being, how we manage a body on day-to-day basis, that technology has to be managed on an ongoing basis, including change management, periodic review, periodic testing, auditing, and most important is the person who's deployed, do they have a competency? I talked about earlier cybersecurity talent. That's also one of the biggest problems. Today, does the people whomsoever managing the security on the ground in the banking sector, does the individual have a required competency? If not, are we outsourcing it? Are we enhancing the competency? All those aspects need to look at it. So it's just not pick and choose a technology. It encompasses the whole flavor of going through like a software, what we talked about 9 yard, the whole flavor one has to review, carefully analyze, implement, and monitor and sustain.
Absolutely. And very well said, JPM, particularly like it's not something you can get off the shelf and implement and you say you're all done and good, right? And just to follow up on the same thing that you mentioned, JPM, there are also multiple flavors getting into this, and it's a moving thing, right? One, RBI keeps coming up with multiple new compliances, right? To which the banks have to keep improvising and come on board to. And even in spite of implementing some of the best-in-class products, the banks continue to face the attacks from the hackers and the criminals. So that has to be an ongoing activity, right?
Very true. Well said, Mohan. And the brilliant question yet again. I would like to start with an anecdote on this. First of all, compliance is not equal to security, right? That's the first part. Well, RBI might have issued a number of circulars, advisories, framework. If I can go back 10 years, Gopalakrishna committee report, which is something like 140 pages, encompassing various sets of best practices. Even today, it's being followed as a Bible by most of the banks. In addition to that, there are varieties of advisories, alerts being issued as a confidential manner by regulator to banks. It's accessible only to banks. Does it stop all these things? No. This is a common bare minimum requirement, common minimum denominator, right? So going back to the earlier word, compliance is not equal to security. In addition to this, organization expected to follow the IT Act from the local law of the land, and in future, personal data protection bill from privacy point of view, and if at all anything relevant to the European Act, GDPR as well. So there are various, all these things will help in only compliance and setting the baseline. But what organization missing is on an ongoing basis, are we really monitoring it very periodically, continuously monitoring it? Like an earlier example of, it can't be just implementing a technology and forgetting it. It's an ongoing process. Just to take an example, in my personal opinion, again to underline, what I found is whenever we talk about cybersecurity, people always take example of people, or rather triad of people, process, and technology. I also completely vouch for that, because some aspects are people, some aspects are process, some aspects are technology. But what is key is people, process, technology in that order. Unfortunately, what's happening? Technology after technology thrown, and wherever, if required, look at the process, and very rarely people aspects looked into. So what's happening because of this? To answer your question, we might have deployed best in the competent people, the efficient, robust processes, best of breed technologies. But if it is not continuously monitored, continuously improved, naturally the cyber criminals will continue to find loopholes. Quite most important challenge what's facing today in the banking sector is two things. One is the ransomware. Second is the phishing attack. So whatever sophisticated technology is being deployed in the organization with robust processes and efficient people being there to continuously monitor, however big the organization is, the cyber criminal need only one entry. That one entry could be a simple phishing email, one unfortunate user who's sitting behind the terminal, clicking on that particular link and providing user ID and password, and that is being stolen by the criminal, and is sitting in the system for 1 week, 2 week, 1 month, 2 months, understanding the whole flavor of how does it work, and then moving laterally within the organization. At one fine day, he is attacking and either stealing the information or taking away the financial, sabotaging the finances systems or taking away the finances. So the most important is for all the technologies process being deployed, continuously monitoring and ensuring we are improving it. Just looking at the same thing from my NIST framework, which beautifully defines the standard, NIST stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology, which gives a complete framework: identify, prevent, detect, respond, and recover. Most important part is, while prevention is most of the technologies, processes, controls being placed, detect and recover or detect and respond is a place where banks need to be continuously focusing on. Again, throwing a technology such as SIEM or SOAR, those kind of buzzwords alone is not good enough. Continuous monitoring in the form of efficient processes will help in minimizing. So in a nutshell, it's not the question of when, it's a question of it's going to happen, how I'm going to respond. That's what the necessarily cyber resilience means. Attack bound to happen. So it's quite natural. Every organization will get attacked. How quickly we detect and how fast we respond so that we can quickly recover and bring back the business is nothing but cyber resilience in my mind.
Thank you. JP and Manju saying cyber resilience. That's exactly what we position and the services we do for our customers, the banking customers. Our cybersecurity, we call it a cybersecurity resilience services, right? From identifying to prevention and also responding to it, and how do we address it on an ongoing basis. And we see that in a day-to-day basis with our SOC NOC centers, how much of a threat we see with the banking industry and how we have to work on a vehement, vigorous way to prevent it and protect our customers' assets, right? And it is more acute today with the remote operations. Right? The last 2 years has made it a bit more vulnerable. And how the banks respond, how the customers respond to that is extremely critical. Right? So maybe let me ask you some tips on the whole cybersecurity governance. So if you can list down some tips for all of us, the customers to note down, that would be extremely helpful.
Okay, great, Mohan. So when you talk about cybersecurity governance, while I'm not a politician to talk about more of governance, less of government. So in my mind, in the cybersecurity world, the governance plays a very, very vital role. So governance inclusive of risk assessments, security audit, and incident. I would say CISO have these three levers from a cybersecurity point of view. Of course, these three levers should be aligned with the business. So which means the first and foremost, the risk assessment is one of the key layers which needs to be focused on. This needs to be done. I would say when you talk about software development lifecycle, people talk about the security requirement need to be incorporated right at the develop or rather requirement specification stage. I would say when it comes to security, product conceptualization. When I say product, I'm talking about banking product conceptualization stage itself. Cybersecurity need to play a role for go, no-go decision. That's part number one. Part number two is the audit. So cybersecurity is all about very periodically doing testing, reviewing, auditing in the form of internal audit, external audit, red team assessments, vulnerability assessments, penetration testing. The list goes on. Application security scanning, network scanning. The list goes on and on and on. Varieties of service providers will be able to advise, including you, what you talked about with your own customers. The last but not the least is a cybersecurity incident response. As and when any incident happens, people should be able to respond instantly so that we are able to, our banks able to give the required confidence. When you talk about incident response, it's like I would say it's an art. Defining a process is very simple. Today, organization may be appointing a consulting and then or Google it pull out a document called Security Incident Response Plan document, which can be there. But on an ongoing basis, continuously improving that is an art. It's a scientific process, but someone has to take a decision so that properly it is being continuously improved. This is my first step, which means 3 levers has to be concurrently used: risk assessment, audit, and incident response processes. The second one is very, very vital from a governance point of view: 3 layers of defense. The first layer being the business unit itself. So today, when we go to the business, they take care of the marketing, they take care of, when I say business in the banking parlance, I'm talking about the retail, mortgage, lending business, or treasury business, or banking customers handling, whatever we talk about, that's a line of business, right? So whenever we talk about line of business, they take care from all aspects of that, including quality, marketing, sales, customer grievance handling, HR aspects, everything being handled. But when it comes to the security, it is being given back within the organization to IT or to a CISO or to a CRO. That should not be the case. The first line of defense, they are all enablers. The first line of defense is line of business itself, which is very, very vital. The second line of defense is where the CISO, that is Chief Information Security Officer, who is in turn reporting into the CRO, comes into the play. The third line of defense is nothing but internal audit. Internal audit, how they expect to give, first of all, go back to second line of defense, like how we talked about the first line of defense expected to be giving assurance on the basic compliance measure, including cybersecurity aspects. Second line of defense, that is CISO and CRO coupled together, expected to work with first line to ensure that first line is really working effectively, that is the line of business working effectively.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think a very valuable tips we have heard so far from JPM, who has been advising RBI on the cybersecurity resilience. So it's a foremost thought leader in the space, and his governance and the security audits are being looked upon by the industry veterans as well, and a great number of customers in the Indian banking industry. So very valuable input she has brought in. And it reflects also on what at Connect Digital we do when we talk about transforming, managing, and governing the cybersecurity services for our banking customers, the NBFCs and the insurance customers in India context. And with our shared services and our centers for providing, protecting, and responding to the threats effectively with our command centers in Bangalore and across India, we're able to deliver this to our customers, and we'll be very happy to have a conversation with anyone interested in the participants today on how we do this and how we can review the current set of technologies being implemented and the vulnerability in some of the solutions we have today with our customers. So it's, as Mr. JPM pointed out, it's an ongoing process. It has to be governed effectively. That means a right strategy and the right solution and an ongoing governance of those, right? And we are also working closely with many of the partners. He talked about many of the solutions. One of the partners we work very closely is on the governance, risk, and compliance with ServiceNow. We have a solution that we work together with ServiceNow for our customers, particularly in the banking industry. And we'll be very happy to engage in a conversation with the customers on this as well. So very insightful session. I hope all of you found it relevant and useful and very practical. And looking forward to having conversations with the interested participants subsequently as well. And really appreciate all of you for spending time with us, and a very fruitful discussion. And thanks, JPM, for this.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chennasamudra. Like you very rightly mentioned, a very, very insightful session, all thanks to Mr. P. Jairam here. And there is a need for creating the right strategies, bringing about the right solutions, and all those of our delegates would like to connect. I'm sure the entire team of Connect Business Solutions will be more than happy to take partnership forward. And now to thank all of you personally and present the vote of thanks, may I extend a very warm welcome to Saji Pillai, Senior Vice President and Head of Strategic Sales, Connect Business Solutions.
Hello, thank you everybody. I mean, like I'm Shaji Pillai here. I'm the Senior Vice President for Strategic Sales and Initiatives in Connect. This, I think, was a very meaningful session, and I would like to give a heartfelt thanks to all the people who attended this event, to ET for conducting such a good event, and all the speakers and panelists who have just contributed their time and effort in just making this meaningful. And what I think we just gathered from the last few hours is like how the BFSI segment is just embracing the change and the new ecosystems of distribution models where the competition is coming from very unforeseen areas like the fintech companies, new age fintech companies with their digital products. How the BFSI segment has to just get into the social engagement model with more meaningful data, and how you improve the experience design of whether it's a user as a client experience or the employee experience, how you just make it more meaningful with the latest technologies and the digital transformation journey you are taking in. How do you make your omni-channel experience more meaningful? How do you just travel towards the BFSI organizations of the future, whether it's a bank of the future or whether it's an insurance company of the future, FinServ company of the future? How you are just going into that transformation journey, and how you digitize the entire relationship, how do you digitize your workforce enablement, and how do you just make sure that your security and compliance is up to date and in line with the industry norms. So I think, and how Connect as an organization can help you in this journey. I think that was the essence of these 3 hours of our discussions. And again, I want to thank everybody, both the external speakers, our partners, ET, and our colleagues who came for this discussion. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Pillai, for really closing this session on such a spectacular note. And I'd like to take a moment and thank all our delegates for being such a spectacular part of the Economic Times Digital Experience webinar presented by Connect Digital. I'm sure the entire team of Connect Digital will be happy to get in touch with all of you, see how you can work on partnership, various solutions that they have for you to make your customers' experiences seamless. Once again, as I thank all of you for joining us, may I please request you to please fill up the feedback forms. That's how we will get to know what you think about the various sessions and speakers that we've lined up for you. Taking a moment and thanking our partners for their support, our presenting partner, Connect Digital, and this virtual webinar has been brought to you by ET Edge. On behalf of the entire team, this is Isha Bhalla, thanking you for joining us.